Well, I hope you had fun answering those questions in chapter 1, 1 through 7. We're going to move to our next section, which is chapter 1, verses 18 through 17. 18 through 17. Verse 8 through 17 of chapter 1. Let me read it for us. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, because of your faith is being reported all over the world. God, whom I serve with my whole heart in preaching the gospel of his Son, is my witness, how constantly I remember you in all my prayers at all times. And I pray that now at last by God's will, the way may be open for me to come to you. I long to see you that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to make you strong. That is, you and I may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith. I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that I have planned many times to come to you, but I have been prevented from doing so until now, in order that I might have a harvest among you just as I have had among the other Gentiles. I am obligated to both Greeks and non-Greeks, both to the wise and to the foolish, and that is why I am so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. In verse 16, and this is the key verse, it says, I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes, first for the Jew and then for the Gentile. For in the gospel, the righteousness from God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. So this is the next part of the introduction, and I just want to start out by saying that he gives thanks to the Roman people for their faith. And he says, I've been constantly praying with you, and I constantly remember you in my prayers at all time. Now, this is really important, is because Paul's not writing this as a theologian or he's writing it as a pastor who actually cares for these people. And so he prays for them, and he knows that there's trouble, and knows that there's tribulation. So he prays that at some point he's going to visit them. Now, he's never been to Rome. So he doesn't know the Roman church. Now, he knows people who have migrated or have moved to Rome, most Gentiles, but he knows some Jews as well. And so he hasn't been able to go there. If we look in verse 11, it says, I long to see you that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to make you strong, and that I may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith. So the two things that he's trying to do, and this is really interesting, the reason why he's writing this is to make them strong. All right? So the implied reason that he's writing this is that they are what? Weak. All right? And that he says that we might be mutually encouraged, so they're probably what? Discouraged. So you have a people who are not united, they're infighting, they're condemning one another, they're judging one another, and their faith is not strong right now, and they're also kind of discouraged. So he says, I don't want you to aware, I've been trying to get there, and I'm obligated to everyone, both Jews and non-Jews, Greeks and non-Greeks, and he says both to the wise and to the foolish. Now, the Jews are probably saying, where are the wise ones? And the Gentiles are saying they're the wise ones, and the foolish ones are the other ones. And so he kind of throws that out there about the division here. And look what he says in verse 15. That is why I'm so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. So the gospel is the instrument by which he is going to strengthen and encourage. Now, in verses 16 and 17, could be called the thesis of the entire book of Rome. He says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, and he's going to give us four reasons he is not ashamed of the gospel. First, I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God for salvation. God has not given us anything other than the gospel to save man. And it's really important that we understand this. This word power is actually the word dunamis, where we get our word for dynamite, TNT. So he's saying that this is the TNT of God for salvation. And so this is when I ask you as Christians, if you say you believe in the gospel but your life hasn't changed, then it's kind of like saying I've been hit with dynamite, but my life hasn't changed. Because this is the power of God in which saves men. Now, which men is he talking about? He's talking about both Jew and Gentile. Again, repeating, both Jew and Gentile, both Jew and Gentile. The Jews need it just as much as the Gentiles need it. All right? Now, what does it do? It reveals God's righteousness from heaven. Now, he reveals God's righteousness, how God makes all things right. It reveals the plan of salvation and how he makes all things right with men. Through who? Jesus Christ. It's actually, the word here for righteousness is, who is our righteousness? Jesus. It's really how he reveals who? God's Son, our righteousness. And then finally, and this is so important, he takes a verse from the Old Testament, and that verse is this last little bit, and it says, the righteous will live by faith. The righteous will live by faith. Now that comes from Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. So it is by faith in the person and the work of Jesus Christ, not by works, but by faith. It's not how, if you go to church, it's not what you eat, it's not what you do, it's not being good enough. Because remember, we try to be good enough and we have to be what? Perfect. No one can be perfect, so we cannot be good enough to get to heaven. It is by faith in the person, Jesus, and the work he did on the cross on our behalf. And if we put our faith in him and him alone, we'll have salvation. Now go to your next lesson and answer the questions.